On her birthday, Olivia looked at me with that familiar spark of defiance in her eyes. She had been like this for years now, charming, unpredictable, and impossible to control. "Let me hit the nightclub tonight or we're done," she said, her tone a mix of teasing and threat. I quietly lifted my glass, sipping the wine, watching her try to gauge my reaction. I had learned long ago not to react immediately when she tried to provoke me. The quiet ones, the calm ones, always end up winning. We had been together for 4 years. The first 2 were electric, full of laughter, late-night drives, spontaneous adventures. But over time I started noticing the cracks, the subtle dismissals, the growing indifference to the life we had built together. Olivia had always been social, but lately it had turned into something else. A need to test boundaries, to assert dominance, to see if I would fold under pressure. Tonight was another test, and I wasn't about to fail. I could feel the tension in the room, the unspoken challenge lingering like smoke. She adjusted her hair, the club dress perfectly hugging her frame, eyes shining with expectation. "You're not even going to argue?" she asked. Her voice had a mixture of surprise and irritation. I smiled faintly, just enough to let her see I was calm, untouchable. "No need," I replied. "I'll trust you to make the right decision." She stared at me a moment longer, trying to read the emotion behind my calm demeanor. But I had learned to hide everything: my frustration, my disappointment, my sense of betrayal. In my line of work, reading people is a skill I had honed over the years. And in my personal life it was the same. I could see her thinking, calculating, wondering if she could push me any further. It wasn't the first time she had threatened to leave or punish me with her whims. But tonight felt different. I sensed an escalation, a dangerous mix of recklessness and entitlement. Olivia didn't realize it yet, but this birthday would mark a turning point in our relationship. A moment she would not forget, and neither would I. As she left the apartment, heels clicking against the wooden floor, I remained seated, swirling the wine in my glass. The city lights flickered through the window, casting shadows that mirrored the growing uncertainty between us. I didn't move. I didn't call. I didn't react. Let her go. Sometimes the quietest response carries the loudest message. By the time Olivia reached the nightclub, the energy in the air had already begun to change her. She was used to attention, to eyes following her every move, to whispers trailing behind her laughter. But tonight, something felt different. An unease, subtle yet unmistakable, like the first tremor before an earthquake. She didn't notice it yet, blinded by the thrill of freedom and the crowd's approval. Meanwhile, I stayed behind, sitting in the quiet of our apartment. I didn't scroll through my phone, I didn't check messages. Instead, I observed, letting the tension build like a storm gathering strength. I thought about the countless nights we had spent together, the intimacy we had once shared, and the growing distance that now defined us. I realized then how little she valued our connection, how easily she could jeopardize everything we had built over a fleeting sense of independence. I remembered how she had tried to frame control as fun, as spontaneity, as living in the moment. But there was nothing fun in fear, nothing spontaneous in threats, nothing freeing about betrayal. Her words echoed in my mind. "Let me hit the nightclub or we're done." They had been a challenge, a dare, a veiled test to see how far she could push me before I broke. Hours passed. The sounds of the city and the distant bass of the club were the only reminders of her presence outside. I felt no panic, no urgency. Instead, I felt a growing clarity. In all my years, I had learned that people reveal themselves in how they act when no one is watching. And Olivia tonight was revealing everything. When she returned, flushed from excitement and with a cloud of perfume lingering in the air, she expected me to greet her, to compliment her, to act as if nothing had happened. But I didn't. I waited until she fully noticed my silence, until the weight of her actions began to sink in. The apartment felt heavier, the quiet louder. She looked at me, searching for anger, for jealousy, for some reaction to validate her bravado. But all I offered was a steady, unwavering calm, and in that calm, she saw a reflection she hadn't anticipated. Her lips parted as if to speak, to justify, to charm me back into her world, but I raised my glass slowly, just enough to let her feel the distance between us. "Did you have a good night?" I asked, finally, voice neutral, carrying a subtle edge she couldn't quite name. She faltered. For the first time in years, the playful mask slipped, and beneath it, I saw the flicker of doubt, the shadow of regret. Olivia froze, the playful confidence she had carried into the night beginning to crumble under the weight of my silence. She searched my eyes for a spark of anger, of jealousy, of the reaction she thought she had earned, but there was nothing. Only a quiet, unyielding calm that held more power than any outburst ever could. Her bravado faltered, and for the first time I saw uncertainty shadow her features. I set my glass down slowly, deliberately, letting the sound punctuate the space between us. "So," I said, voice calm yet firm, "you went out to prove something, didn't you?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. The words she wanted to say, the excuses, the justifications, the charm, evaporated in the face of my stillness. I had learned long ago that silence often speaks louder than confrontation. And tonight it would speak volumes. Olivia's eyes darted, flicking to the clock, to the apartment, to me, as if searching for some anchor, some reassurance that everything was fine. But there was none. I let her anxiety grow, letting her realize that the consequences of her actions were not arbitrary. They were real, inevitable, and entirely her responsibility. The nightclub had been her playground, but the apartment was her reckoning. She took a hesitant step forward, then another, trying to bridge the distance she had created. I held my ground. "Do you understand now?" I asked softly. "What it feels like when someone you claim to love treats the relationship as optional?" Her lips trembled. She wanted to argue, to minimize, to regain control, but the control had shifted. Not with words, not with anger, but with the steady weight of awareness, the quiet power of someone who refuses to be manipulated. Hours passed in tense stillness, the silence between us louder than any music or laughter she had sought outside. Slowly, I saw her posture change, from defiance to contemplation, from arrogance to vulnerability. She realized she had miscalculated, that the thrill she had chased so casually carried consequences far beyond her anticipation. For the first time, she understood that respect, trust, and boundaries could not be bargained away for temporary amusement. I finally spoke again, voice neutral but edged with certainty. "You wanted freedom tonight," I said. "And you got it. But understand this, freedom comes with accountability. Choices have consequences. Actions have weight." She lowered her eyes, shame mingling with frustration, and for the first time, she faced the truth of her recklessness. I picked up my glass again, finishing the wine in slow, deliberate sips. Olivia stood quietly, absorbing the lesson she had long resisted learning. In that moment the balance shifted. The defiance faded, replaced by understanding. And though our future together remained uncertain, one thing was clear: manipulation, threats, and games would no longer dictate the course of this relationship. The silent reckoning had spoken, and it would not be ignored.